What's going on, everybody? Happy Friday. It's BobbyFI back with my man Sheets. We are going to get through this monster NBA Friday slate. Sheets coming off a big win. We won the spin move last night with just 2 entries. This is another monster slate, which is one that we've done well on monster slates. We've done well on small slates. This is an interesting one, man. What are your first thoughts? And again, congratulations on last night.
Well, you've done well on bigger slates. I usually do well on the smaller slate. So I'm going to be deferring hopefully to you for some guidance on this one because there's a lot of players in the player pool on a 10-game slate. So it's gonna be interesting. And I just got word that LaMarcus Aldridge is playing, which makes things even harder. Okay, yeah. So let's see what we can do.
Let's see what we can do. First thing I'm going to get into is real quick my thoughts on this, like overall from a slate perspective. Obviously, sure. With the lacking value, we can expect at this point of the NBA season, when we keep getting these late information and the big value play yesterday becoming Ish Smith, obviously, but like there's going to be value that opens up probably. But if not, I do think that even if so, Sheets just proved it last night. Having a more middling build and not going for the extreme value, you can sometimes win anyway. So there's a lot to that we're going to say here that's still going to be valuable, even though, again, it's going to be different by the end of the slate. But
well, just you know what you're looking at here on my screen. So what I do is I have three just kind of, and these aren't going to be lineups I put in necessarily, but these are just three kind of ideas. Like the one in the middle, right, was just basically things that I just put in last night. You know what I mean? Just, boy, I wonder what I'm going to do tomorrow, right? Just before I looked at projections or anything. And then I put in a couple of just kind of ideas to kind of work around, but these are going to be work in progress. Like you see on the left, I have Giannis in there. We're going to get to Giannis in a minute. And then all the way on the right, you'll see like a full game stack of the Washington-Miami game with literally 4 from each player, each team on there, which I would never do. You know what I mean? So we will we'll get back to all this, but that's just the way I kind of start, and then I just kind of build out from there through the game-by-game analysis. But I agree with Bobby in that, you know, in a 10-game slate, there is just going to be value that opens up just by the way, just the law of averages. You know, there's going to be news that comes out. And we've already heard, I mean, we'll get into this, that something as weird as Karl Anthony Towns and Wiggins being game-time decisions. I mean, which basically means that there's probably going to be very important news coming after lock. You know what I mean? So it's going to be it is going to be a wild one.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's get into the first game because I think that we're going to probably move quickly through these. In all honesty, it's my daughter's first basketball game, first high school basketball game tonight. So I'm not going to be able to make all the late pivots that I normally would. So it's going to be a one big lineup on each site kind of a night for me.
Interesting.
So that's just sort of the way just because of practically, like on these giant slates, you need to be able to late swap. It's just hard not to. It's hard not to have that ability. Anyway, so we've got the first game of the night. We've got Brooklyn and Charlotte, which is, I think, one of the more interesting kind of spots. But I honestly, at these prices, am finding myself mostly a little bit uninterested, even though the situation seems good. How about you?
Well, this is probably the wrong way to look at DFS, but the way I'm looking at this slate, I look at this as kind of 3 different slates. You know what I mean? I'm looking at this as there's a 7 o'clock slate, right? I'm talking about Eastern time, where to me there's like one game of any mild interest. There's an 8 o'clock slate with one game of interest, and then there's a late slate. You know what I mean? So I kind of like looking at these first couple of games kind of together, and actually the Brooklyn-Charlotte game, as far as the first 3 games, you would think that it would be an appealing game just because, you know, it's got a big total and all this stuff. But as far as the projections go and what I'm looking at, I kind of agree with you. Like, this game to me doesn't have too much appeal to me. Like, if I were forced to play somebody from Brooklyn, it would be to play Spencer Dinwiddie. I'm just not going to do it probably tonight. There's just other places I'm going to go. But he rates to be the best of, you know, a lot of kind of crappy alternatives. And on the Charlotte side, again, there's Devontae Graham, who always has a ceiling, right? And you could also if you want to speculate with Bismack Biyombo, or maybe if you hear that Cody Zeller might be starting, getting more run or something like that, it's always kind of a fun thing to, you know, try to play Charlotte centers against the Nets. But aside from that, I mean, I'm kind of agreeing with you. I'm just kind of off of this game for the most part.
Yeah, for me, it's pretty simple. It's it's maybe a shot on Allen, Prince, or Miles Bridges, and that's it. I'm not going to play Dinwiddie at this price. People don't realize that while the price is reasonable on Dinwiddie, everybody else, even though we don't have extreme value, everybody's underpriced. So we'll get through it. But like, there's a lot of people who are going to stand out as being underpriced. I just like those guys I mentioned because they have somewhat of a ceiling. Not going to stack this game, only playing one lineup on each side. And for me, I'm just going to skip all those. I'm not going to speculate on anyone. If it was, it would be Jared Allen, Taurean Prince, and Mikal Bridges.
I actually put Miles Bridges in this lineup from last night. And listen, I don't want to tell anybody how to play, and I don't want to be that podcast, whatever you call this thing, that just gives out picks. But what I like to do really is whatever content you look at, I kind of like old school. I literally have a piece of paper and a pen. Right. Mm-hmm. And when people talk about things like, well, maybe I like this guy a little bit, I'll just kind of write those down and keep kind of a list so that, like, if I'm getting stuck, like with my builds later, I can say, boy, I would like to have kind of a pile of players to go to kind of fill in that maybe, aren't going to look like the best plays, but are just kind of plays that fit, that have some upside, that you're going to differentiate yourself a little bit. So, like, I'm going through this, and like when Bobby says, I don't really like this game too much, or Miles Bridges might be the guy, I'll actually put down Miles Bridges on like kind of like a list, and I'll have a pile of like 25, 30 guys that I can just kind of go to kind of filter through my lineups.
Likewise, absolutely same thing here. You ready to move on to the next one?
Yep. The next one I have is actually Orlando Cleveland. Orlando Cleveland, there's actually, for me, again, it's not a game I'd want to stack, so it's not the game that I'm going to just kind of focus in on for my builds. But as far as the one-offs that stand out as far as projections go, I'm looking at your man. I'm looking at Jonathan Isaac, who is actually popping really, really aggressively today. Before I even talk about it, I'm looking at ownership, and there's, as of now, no huge ownership, slant one way or the other with anybody above 20, 25% on the slate in general. But again, that could all change when other value opens up. On the Cleveland side, Kevin Love is looking to be the one guy that's looking okay for me. And the other guy is actually looking okay is somebody that you like to play sometimes. I don't know. No, actually not Darius Garland. The other guy, Colin Sexton. I don't know if you're a Colin Sexton guy. But from this game, I would just kind of put, Isaac and Love as like guys that I'll be willing to kind of go to, but that's, kind of small percentages filling in, other better plays that I like, throughout my lineups.
Yeah, I think it's very simple for me. I will have some interest in Isaac. Look, I can't say they'll be in my lineups because we don't have the final day. It's not done yet. But as of right now, I wouldn't mind, even if I was building one lineup, to have a shot with Isaac and Love at these prices. I really think that they're just too low for where the ceilings are. And if you can get anywhere near a ceiling game from either of them, and what's actually a pretty good matchup for Isaac especially, I think it's interesting. So those are my two interests in this game. I don't really want to get into anyone else because everyone I can make an argument for. Like, if there's no value, Darius Garland makes some sense to me. I get the Colin Sexton. I feel like there's like a pretty safe shot at 30 fantasy points, which is pretty good for his price. But I don't really love the upside. So I'm probably going to just stick with those two.
So what I like to do is again, so like in this lineup that I had, what's his name, Love in there, we talked about Isaac, and then you mentioned, maybe it's a good idea to play the two of them together, which makes a little bit of sense, if the game kind of goes off a little bit. So I actually, in this lineup, I just kind of just threw Isaac in there just to kind of see where this whole thing takes me, especially when I'm hand building lineups, I can kind of get away with this. And yeah, you're costing yourself a little bit from an optimization standpoint, but, you gain a little bit of correlation, you gain a little, of your own personal touch, which I do think is worth something. And for you, like tonight, if you're only playing a couple of lineups, like big ones, for you, you really want to make sure you get them the way you want them.
Absolutely.
Anything else in this game?
No, let's move on.
The next game I have is, again, as we say, Indiana plays Detroit 7 days a week. So this is like another one that they play. And fortunately, the Indiana-Detroit, I have the exact same opinion on both these teams as I'm starting to have in general. Indiana, I have two guys. No surprises to anybody. They're going to be Brogdon and Sabonis, who just look kind of okay. And on Detroit, on the other side, I'm looking at AD and Blake, and to me, they both just kind of look okay. Not that either of them are bad per se, but they're not really standing out. I will again caution, as I always do, about the Brogdon thing. You know, like he is coming down a little bit in price, but I still hear content, you know, talking about, oh, well, you know, he started off really, really well. He's regressing a little bit, but he's still strong. Again, he still has not put up that type of number since all these guys have been back. So I would just be very, very careful about playing guys like Brogdon, because even though he's down from whatever he was, that doesn't necessarily mean that this is a good price. Because again, you know, the projection models, I don't know how many games they use as far as sample sizes go, but I would worry that they're using, you know, those previous games where he had limited teammates as overweighting the sample size just a little bit. So I would be cautious of that. But if we were going to play these guys, I would play either Brogdon or Sabonis. I probably wouldn't play them both, just because, again, I don't know if they're both going to hit ceilings. And and Detroit, again, Blake and Andre, again, I can't figure Blake out ever. But I could play either of these guys. But again, neither of them are that big of a priority, I don't think.
All right, I have a hero call of the day from this game.
Let's go. Derrick Rose?
It's too long. It's probably they're not the right slate for it, but
of course it is. Let's go.
He's fun for me on these big slates before. It's Myles Turner.
Let's go.
Myles Turner is going to be unowned. Has traditionally done well in these matchups. Put up 46 in the first matchup, only 26 in the second one. I believe he got in foul trouble. Andre Drummond, he does two things well against Drummond. He pulls him away from the basket, which is nice because that's one thing Drummond doesn't like to do much, so he can get some 3-point looks. He's able to block shots and play near the rim. If he can stay out of foul trouble, he should also get his minutes basically minute for minute with Drummond tonight, I think, because I don't think they want to get too much of Sabonis on him. And Sabonis will guard grip. Like, these guys play two bigs, and then they'll bring in Wood. Like, they're going to play bigs. Turner should have a higher minutes than we're used to seeing. He should have a a high ceiling considering the kind of environment. Andre Drummond also will chase down blocks and occasionally leave some offensive rebound. I'm sorry, he'll leave some defensive rebounds out there. Look, I'm just saying, offensive rebound potentials for Turner, defensive rebound he'll give up on for himself because he'll try to block the shot. I just think it's a tournament play where I think there's a really good shot at 40-plus fantasy points for Turner. I don't know that I'm going to have him for sure by the time we get through this, but as of right now, I actually think at his value, I really, really think that and even his projections are solid. It's just that no one's going to play him. So I really like him.
So this is the way I look at it again. So when you turn me on him, I'm looking at him, and the one thing I see as far as projections go is he looks to be like just kind of like just whatever, just like okay. But I'm looking at the minutes projections that a lot of places are using to build those, and they're showing about 30 or so minutes. And as you were saying, I just think that if you put a gun to my head and you say, let's say it was going to be 4 minutes above that or below that, right? I think that there's there's a decent chance for upside to those minutes. You know,
well, rather than speculating, let's look at the history. He's played this team twice this year. He's played 38 minutes in each game.
Well, there you go.
There you go. So can we estimate that if this game stays close, more than likely he's going to be in there for more than his normal minutes, because his two highest minute totals of the seasons were in the two games against this exact team.
Yeah, I mean, I would go back again. I only have the DraftKings one up here.
Well, it was the first game of this, and Sabonis was there. I mean, everybody was there.
Yep. So well, this is like you said, this is a perfect tournament play because, and not only tournament play, because when you hear people say tournament play, it has that, you know, that sense of, oh, it's just some wild card gamble. You know what I mean? But based on the way you frame the argument, it doesn't even seem like that off the board of a game script. You know what I mean? Like for it to happen, because like I said, you know, the minutes projections seem a little low, and like you said, based on actual history, there's proven upside from that. And hey, and the bottom line is going to be 4% owned. So that's you know, I could be wrong for 4% owned.
Yeah, and he's been struggling, but I don't really care. You know, he can struggle and put up 30 fantasy points here, and if he has a good game, he can put up 45, and he's had really good games against Drummond in the past. I like this spot a lot for him as long as he stays out of foul trouble. So that's sort of my awesome. And I like Blake and Drummond both. I'm debating between which one. I just like the price on Blake. but I probably am going to, in the end, not be too interested in using them. I might come back to Drummond. I'm still debating on that one. I don't know if I want to play both these centers.
Okay, so moving on to Washington and Miami. So you have to watch the injury news here, right? Similarly to yesterday, right? Because Isaiah Thomas was out with a calf, whatever it is. Now it's back to back. I don't know what. I mean, right now I'm looking at him being out. I mean, I'm projecting him being out, but that could obviously change. And Moritz Wagner, you got to watch him just because he's on a back to back or whatever it is. But assuming Isaiah out, or even not assuming Isaiah out, fortunately or unfortunately, this game is just, for me at least, at this point, just my prime building block of the day. Even just from projections, I mean, like all these guys from Washington are just continuing to blow up on the. I mean, like Beal, Wagner, Rui Hachimura, to a lesser extent, Davis Bertans. And if Isaiah Thomas is out, Ish Smith once again is just going to be a lock. You know what I mean? Like to or at least a lock to have starting point guard minutes, at least to start off the game. So I mean, if the ownership holds, which I just can't imagine it does. I mean, these guys are not even projected to be that highly owned. I think that's got to come back. And on the Miami side, I mean, it's just, I don't want to say it seems too easy, but I'm looking at Butler and Bam as just total, like, projection-based smash plays, right? In perfect correlation, meaning that, you know what I mean, you're in the same game. And aside from those two, you could even play Justice Winslow if he even plays, right? So if Justin Winslow doesn't play, then you could go to stuff like Nunn and Hero. But I don't know. I mean, like, for me, I'm just going to start with a full freaking stack of all these dudes pending, injury news and pending a real wild change in ownership, which I have to imagine is coming. If you look at FanDuel, it's even worse as far as how well these guys pop. So I'm going to start with that, but you have to remind me that there's one kind of like off the board thing I want to discuss with you about this game. But what do you think about this game?
So this is where I'm going to make another stance because I am not going to be playing very much tonight. And I'm kind of glad because this game would give me a lot of headaches. If Isaiah Thomas plays, I'm bordering on just, and Wagner, I may just fade this game entirely. I think this is a really, really scary spot for Washington on a back-to-back after a big win at home against a team that's deep and much better than they are. It's a really, I just have a hard time seeing how they're going to, especially traveling to Miami. Like,
yep.
All right, man. So I'm just going to have to make a stand here. I think that Butler and Bam could still smash and get there and be great. Like, I actually think a weird off-the-board value guy is Myers Leonard for me. Like, he might see extra minutes if this game gets ugly or not. Like, there's a lot of
I've got a worse one. So go ahead.
Yeah. And I think that like the only play I like in this game, and I like him a little bit even if Winslow plays. I really like him if Winslow doesn't play, is Tyler Hero. He sort of fits that game script that I like in a great pace environment against a team that leaves guys open for three all the time. Should suit him and Nunn. Both of them are interesting plays. I like Hero as the more off the board play who might get the nonsense run.
Okay, so I have two things I wanted to mention, and I don't know if I should shout out to who I got this from, but there was some there was some story that Bam hurt his foot, that he was icing his foot after the last game from last week, and there was actually like someone asked about it, and they were saying that it's not a big deal, and they asked Bam, he said nothing, it's not a big deal, it just hurts, you know what I mean? So I figured I'd just throw that out there. But the two guys that I want to, ask you about from this game is partially if the game not only just gets out of hand, but partially just the pace of this game. I'd be perfectly willing to go to Kelly Olynyk in this game.
Absolutely.
God forbid Bam is actually a little hurt or they want him not playing that many minutes, and Kelly O wants to get in a game where he can freaking fire away and just play at high pace. I would probably put him in my player pool. He's not projecting that well, but whatever. He's, again, an upside kind of guy.
I have him projecting pretty well.
Oh, okay, good. And the other one I'll throw out there, again, if you have nothing else to do with your life and you're playing like a 50-cent tournament or whatever it is. Now, again, this is only if Isaiah is out, okay? You want to play a blowout run, you'll play that freaking guy that was backup point guard last night for Washington, the Florida guy, who got run, Chris Chiozza, okay, at 3K. Remember, Ish Smith is on a back-to-back, okay? He's on a back-to-back, and if the game gets out of hand, like, certainly some people could think that. I mean, Chiozza could play like the whole second half. You know what I mean? So I am going to probably play him in a lineup if what's his name is in fact out. But again, just because I saw him come in last night, he was definitely the backup point guard. I will consider throwing him in as a total 100% dark room.
I think I'm fine with that. Like, I think
you're only playing one lineup. You're not playing it. So
no. But I do think that, like, Troy Brown also might get some of that backup run at point guard. Like, if there's no, so just keep in mind.
Yep.
All right, let's move on to the next one. Which one do we have next on yours? We got Denver.
I have
Boston.
Denver Boston next.
Good. Yes. We haven't missed
one. Denver Boston. I used to say things like, this is probably going to be a good basketball game, but not so great for fantasy. I don't even know if it's going to be such a good basketball game either. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Like, I'm bored watching freaking Celtics play. I'm kind of bored watching the Nuggets play. You know what I mean? I remember growing up, man, in the 80s, like the Nuggets, they would score 140 points a freaking game. You know what I mean? Like, what the hell's become of the freaking Nuggets? They play in a high altitude freaking environment. They should play a freaking lineup that just runs up and down the freaking court, but they don't. So with that said,
they have a big guy who doesn't ever run. That's part of the problem.
That's the thing, right? Yeah. So I honestly don't have anybody in this game. I mean, look, Jokic is, for me, projecting to be just about the same as some of these other kind of, I don't want to say crappy, because some of these other okay values. Like, I'm looking at him as kind of like the same as actually Drummond, which actually is not that bad. Drummond will have to be higher owned than Jokic. So I could see him in a similar way as I could see Drummond, maybe. I don't know, but I don't know if I'm going to go there. On the Celtics side, I mean, there are four guys that are just all showing to be about the same for me. Now, I'm presuming Marcus Smart in. I think I saw something.
I think we just have to ignore the Celtics on this.
Yeah, but just so you know, I mean, like the four guys, Tatum, Brown, Smart, and Kemba, they all project to be kind of crappy, if you want to know the truth. Yeah. So I am going to, as much as I don't like saying I'm going to X out this game, I honestly don't even know if I'm going to play anybody, even if they showed up to be like that last guy in. You know what I mean? Maybe, again, like just a wild – I don't even know if I could play Jokic if I have 8,000 left. I'd have to be able to find somebody better. But that's pretty much all I had.
Yeah, I actually don't mind Jokic. Personally, I think he'll beat him up inside, and I like him in tight, slow-down games. So I actually think he's kind of an interesting play. I don't think I'll play, Murray or Harris, but I think the prices are low enough to where if you wanted to take a shot or it was your last piece, I'm good with it. Otherwise, I'm just going to leave this game alone.
All right. Minnesota, Oklahoma City. I really hope this isn't the game that turns the whole slate, okay? Because, I mean, I heard that Karl-Anthony Towns and Wiggins are game-time decisions.
Yeah.
Game-time decisions in games after lock. And, again, even though DraftKings not technically lock, it's after the time that I really don't want to have to be freaking glued to the computer, if you want to know the truth. You know what I mean? Like, got stuff to do. I'd like to put in my freaking lineups and go out, and not worry about freaking game time decisions. You know what I mean? Especially when you have a guy like Karl-Anthony Towns who takes up like zillions of usage points and Wiggins who's second, I presume second on the team as far as usage goes. So, So it is going to be really, really annoying. So I will just say from the Minnesota side is watch the news, watch updated projections. I'm sure that if Towns is out and Wiggins is in, that Wiggins is going to just pop huge. I'm sure that Okogie is gonna. I mean, if all the guys on Minnesota, Covington is going to end up getting a huge usage bump. So I would just say proceed at your own risk. Watch the news. If Cat is out, then I think you have to. All these guys are going to move up. I think if Cat is in, if all these guys are in, I don't think I'm going to play Cat. Again, he's going to be another guy that's kind of like just above break-even value for me. I just don't think I'm going to go there. And Okogie looks to be a good value. Again, if I need him, maybe I'll put him in last thing. But, it's now that I think about it, imagine if, you have one guy left and Isaiah Thomas is out, right? And you have Ish Smith at 80% ownership and Okogie at the same price. I don't know. Maybe I might have to take a shot. But aside from that, I have not much interest in Minnesota, aside from just watching the news and see what happens. The part of this game that really, really annoys me is the Oklahoma City side, because unfortunately, Shea is projecting really, really well, and I freaking hate him, okay? I shouldn't say I hate him. I will say again that I just think that his projections are kind of overstated based on, just some early season stuff. And I just think that he's just overpriced until the projections kind of catch up. Nonetheless, in this particular slate, in this particular spot, he is still projecting really, really well. So, I mean, I have to honor it a little bit and just keep him in my player pool, but I can see variations where he's my last guy in and I end up regretting it. The one guy, again, that I will always put in my kind of tournament pool of players that I just will throw in there, if in fact he looks okay, is Dennis Schroeder. He's just kind of got that wild, variance and upside that I can always kind of throw in. I'm not, Chris Paul just looks okay. Danilo just looks okay. Ooh, and for some reason, what I'm looking at has Abdul Nader playing 24 minutes at 3,100. I got to keep an eye on that one. But
I don't know.
Aside from that, I guess those are my takes. I would put Schroeder in my player pool.
Yeah.
Shea does project well, and I guess I'll just leave it at that.
I think you could play any of the guards from Oklahoma City in this matchup, but I don't really love it, to be honest. Too big a slate. So if Wiggins is out on the other side, Okogie, Culver even, but Okogie especially, and then depending on what they do with Teague, I would guess Teague also becomes firmly in play. If both Towns and Wiggins are out, you just play the entire starting lineup. If Towns is out, you play probably Gorgie, who I'm guessing will start, or whoever the starter is. If they go small, I don't know, they're not going to do that. They'll probably play Gorgie, so I would just play Gorgie then. But my guess is, if I had to guess, is that at least one of them plays. I don't think they would both sit tonight. So
would you play Okogie on FanDuel?
Yeah.
And just hope you get the news you want?
Yeah, that would be the way, because he's got outs, he's got outs otherwise, and we've seen 35 and 40 out of this guy before. It's not impossible. Anyway, so that's my thoughts for this game. Again, not all that interested if everyone's healthy.
So I'm curious to see where this goes, because I'm kind of anticipating where you're going to go with your build here. I guess we're going to get there in a little bit.
Yeah, we'll get there shortly.
Yeah. Okay. So Golden State against Chicago. It's so funny. You think about what could have been. Like, imagine if you had a freaking game with Steph Curry, Klay Thompson. You know what I mean? Like, and running it back with and having a game with Zach LaVine on the other side of that game. That's something I'll stay up to watch. Today, now Russell is back. I don't know what his minutes are going to be. I'll just kind of skip to it. As far as projections I have, and I'm looking at right now, I am off of the whole thing as far as Golden State goes. Now again, that could even if I up some of these guys' minutes, they're so far removed from plus value that, again, this is one of those things where I'm still just kind of tied to projections a little bit, and I don't know if I have enough in me to deviate that much, unless you or somebody gives me a reason to. On the Chicago side, again, you can always play Zach LaVine in 10% of your lineups, like we talk about. And I don't know if I'm going to do it as far as like building a stack in this game with Golden State guys, but I wouldn't mind putting Zach LaVine in a lineup or two or whatever. I'm not going to have, I think, as much of him as I might otherwise have. And the other two guys that I think, the other three guys that remain to discuss are Wendell Carter Jr. looks pretty good as far as value goes. Again, I don't know where you want to play him, maybe as a one-off or whatever. And Chris Dunn is looking pretty safe nowadays in the starting if he continues to start. And once again, he's not much of a ceiling guy, but he's somebody that you could, I would say, count on, but you probably count on for 5x, maybe 6x or whatever.
It's a little tricky because they're giving Denzel Valentine some more run these days, and he's going to start playing more. So I'm just probably going to avoid most of the Bulls situation.
Thad Young is out, by the way.
Oh, okay. I don't have that information updated yet.
Thad Young is out.
Okay, well let's take a if that. I guess that you could just make a better argument for Markkanen, who at his price I still believe has a ceiling, even though he's been off for a while.
Okay.
But I just think it's the wrong slate for me. I think the one guy, if we heard like he's going to play a bunch of minutes, and maybe he will, is Draymond. Just because at no ownership at 5.9, like this is
looks like there's a problem.
There goes my Google just made a mistake. No, I just think there's a spot here like for Draymond where he puts up 50 like some of the time. So I think Draymond is a great wild card GPP play, and that's pretty much all I've got in this game.
Well, you mentioned and again, it's important to have those kind of guys that always have that ceiling, and regardless of what they project, and I hate to put it this way, but regardless of what their median projection is, Draymond always has those outliers as far as his range of outcomes that have triple-double upside like all the time. It's just a question of playing the minutes and being motivated, you know what I mean, and then things falling the way they fall. But guys like that are just kind of GPP-type guys that, I don't want to say overcome projections, but again, two guys with the same median are two different types of players. And Draymond is that guy who's going to have a median of, say, 27 points, but he's not going to have 26, 26, 28, 28, 26, 29. He's going to have 13, 12, 51, you know what I mean? So as far as GPPs go, I agree with you that you need a kind of a pool of guys to always look at for that type of upside. And I'm totally going to just throw them in, my list, so to speak.
Yeah, that's all I got from this game. I think we're ready to move on to the next one.
All right. Okay, so this to me is a very, very interesting game. The Clippers and Milwaukee.
Well, this is the best, one of the best basketball games we've had all the year, so it's a great
game. So the first thing I will say is that Giannis is a really, really good value here. Okay. Presuming he gets his minutes or whatever it is. I don't know why they would blow the Clippers out by 30 like they have playing everybody else. Okay. He's been just basically playing in a tuxedo the last 2 weeks. You know what I mean? Just basically showing up on, just making his appearance, doing enough to win the game, and then just resting his ass up. You know what I mean? Basically load managing while still playing, And so he's rested, and if they need him to freaking go kill people, he will. And this is one of those matchups, and the Clippers face these all the time between, and it's the discussion of, call it defenses matter, call it whatever, call it, are there guys matchup proof? And this is going to be one of those games where that theory is kind of put to the test, because I will tell you this, he's projecting to be a tremendous, tremendous play at, I should say, only, I guess, 25% ownership, right? What it says here. I don't know if that's going to hold, but he's projecting to be a really, really good play. And the other two guys, I will say, on the Milwaukee side, Bledsoe is projecting to be pretty decent. And Middleton, who we discussed a couple, the last few games, has been pretty efficient and been doing pretty well. And, if he gets his full run, if there may be over 32 minutes, maybe this is a game for him. You know what I mean? I'm not sure. But those three guys, nobody else. And on the Clipper side, the usual story, which of those three guys, Leonard, Paul George, or Lou Williams, do you want, if any, if not two? From a projection perspective, they all look kind of the same, just kind of if you want to know the truth. Then you're down to guys like Jermichael Green at 3,500 and other kind of whatever values. But two guys I want to discuss with you, number one is Patrick Beverley, who we tend to play a decent amount. And the other guy who I put in my original lineup, again, just stay on brand a little bit, is if this were a game where they would want Zubac in as a center, he's going to be probably pretty low owned at 3,500. I would definitely consider him as an off-the-board play. What do you think of this game?
I think Zubac off the board is interesting. My favorite, I like Beverly, George, and Giannis, all of them. I like Kawhi fine too, but I think I prefer George.
Why is that? How do you make that distinction like that?
Kawhi is an interesting player. He does he is a little bit more scoring reliant than these other guys are. Although the assists have kicked up this year, but it's not like he's had a game where he hasn't had a double-digit rebounding game since Paul George has been back. But then again, they haven't really needed to they've been sort of winning easily also. And you've only seen Paul George play in the 28 to 32 minute range. The main reason I like it tonight though is I think that Paul George is a better. I actually think they're both good shooters. The way you beat Milwaukee is from the outside, but Paul George is the better. He's their better 3-point shooter, to be honest. Yeah, he's one of the best in the NBA. Coming off a game where he had 6 out of 7, he had 4 out of 10 before that. should keep chucking. I like him as a separator. The one thing they've always struggled with in Milwaukee is that good shooting outside wing player. So I think they'll use Paul George that way, and I think he'll be more of a force offensively in this game than Kawhi, but it could go the other way. It's hard to pick between them. I'm just leaning a little George. You also get a little bit of a discount on him. And yeah, that's pretty much where I'm at. I also think that if I knew for sure which one would be guarding Kawhi more, I would probably pick the other one, but I don't know who that's going to be. I think it's going to be a mix of both of them, I guess. And Giannis's price is great. And look, you're playing against the two best wing defenders, two of the five best probably in history, and it doesn't matter at all. He's just too dominant right now. So Giannis is obviously a priority. You don't have a ton of value out there, but it's Giannis, George, and Beverly with some interest in Kawhi for me. I don't know if I'm going to end up getting to Beverly on this slate, but I will point out that, if some of these games stayed close, he's been really, really good with George and Kawhi on the court.
Who, Beverly?
Yeah. And look, I'm not going to play Harold. If you wanted to get into a game stack, using a guy like Harold does make some sense to me. I actually don't think this matchup would suit Zubac very well, but he might still start. I just don't think it's going to. And look, at value, he can still get there for sure. He can do it in 5 minutes, but I don't think that you're going to I don't know. I'm not going to prioritize him crazy heavy, although I don't mind him as a long shot if nothing opens up.
Okay. All right, so we're down to these last two games. Actually, there's one more game in the 8:00 slate, and then there's the take a breath, rest, and root for overtime 10:30 game. So let's first take a look at another possible wait for overtime game, but let's think this one through. So Sacramento against San Antonio. Call it the good news, call it the bad news, call it whatever, but LaMarcus Aldridge is ruled in, okay? Which means that we don't have to worry about playing too much of Jakob Poeltl.
Yeah.
Which also might mean that Moritz Wagner on FanDuel might be kind of a cheap lock at center if it works out. I don't know.
I completely get the Wagner thing. Completely. Yeah. I just am worried about
because I was looking at both Poeltl and Wagner as being the cheap options on FanDuel.
Yeah.
And now that Poeltl's out of it.
The good thing is with those guys out, this game becomes super easy. I don't think you can in good conscience play anyone on San Antonio. Okay,
so the only guy I would have played on San Antonio, if the guys were out, I would have considered doing something with DeRozan. And the other one, again, I would point out to you, I'm not doing it now, but Rudy Gay playing Sacramento, but it's at home, it's different. But I would consider playing DeRozan if I really got behind a lot of the Sacramento guys. So I agree with you. I'm not excited about anybody from San Antonio, except for if I figure out if I do play DeRozan, I'm going to play it with Sacramento. So it's worth me talking about Sacramento. So again, same story. Buddy Hield has just been you call it one man's usage beast is another man's ball hog, whatever it is. But that's just kind of been the way it is, especially when Bogdan's been out. Now, I don't know if he's going to be out again.
We don't know, but he's really banged up, I'll tell you that.
He is. He's incredibly banged up. And, I'll tell you, I was a little disappointed in what happened with Sacramento in the last game because Bogdan, I suspected that he was going to be out. And maybe I did this wrong. You know what I mean? So what I did was on FanDuel, I played a whole bunch of Harrison Barnes, who a guy I never play. Just presuming he would get more use. Maybe that was the wrong way to.
Yeah, I don't affect Harrison Barnes. I played a ton of. I switched over to Farrell and Corey Joseph. They were cheaper then than they are now. But I just think that on this particular slate, I think you're really probably looking at Hield mostly, and I don't mind the big guys up front, but I just think it's mostly going to be Buddy Hield from the Sacramento side for me, pretty much no matter what.
Well, I'll give you one who played, and if Bogdan's out, he's going to play again. Is 3,300 Trevor Ariza. I would consider trying him if I were going to do anything like that. Again, for a 3,300 guy, I don't have to be.
Yeah, agreed. At 3,300 the minutes. Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, but again, I would.
If it was also Ariza versus his former team last time in the old stadium. There was, I don't know. I'm just saying, I wouldn't guarantee that it'd be the same thing here. Although he played there too. Anyway, but
would you go back to Farrell at all?
I don't think I would on this slate, no. And also he's a little bit more expensive. And I get the argument, like the one reason why I would consider it is because this game could easily go small with playing three guards. You could see Forbes, White, and potentially even like Murray and two of those guys with DeRozan all the time. So sort of playing three guards. Maybe that means Farrell could play a three-guard lineup. But I just think it's probably not worth the speculating in the slate.
Okay, so to be clear though, I mean, before I forget, I mean, Buddy Hield is projecting to be really, really a good play.
I like Buddy Hield a lot, like either way, but I don't think he's like by any means a must, and I'm not gonna like lock him in or if I was playing a bunch of lineups, but I do think he's a really, really strong play, especially not knowing about Bogdan. If we don't know about Bogdan, he's an even better play on FanDuel.
Right. Okay, so last game after everybody's posted their well, except for you, everybody. As soon as I've posted my Washington stacks up on the board, right? So the Lakers-Portland game is, to me, very, very interesting. And it's probably going to be someplace I go as far as my next build is. I don't know which way. This is like, again, this sounds so basic. We talked about this yesterday. It's so easy that a 5-year-old could come up with it. So it's probably too obvious. I really don't know how much I want to do it. But, for me, give me Lillard and either James or AD on the other side and rock the house, okay?
Let's go.
That would be my initial take on this whole deal. Now, again, from a projection perspective, I will tell you that Lillard projects pretty well. I will tell you from a projection perspective that both James and Davis project really well. Now, for me, I would think logically that the guy I would want would be in an up and back game would be LeBron, just because he would have the ball in his hands more often. But does that mean that more people will play him? Does that mean popularity? But then on the other hand, LeBron is 10-1 compared to Davis 9-6, so maybe Davis's ownership will be whatever. I have no problem playing both of those combinations with Lillard and James and Lillard and Davis. And, this is one of those things where, the total's 225, whatever it is, but you get a close game, and it's really going to be – I don't care about Carmelo. I don't care about the fact that what's-his-name had a really good game the other day, McCollum, whatever it is. It's going to be the Lillard show if it's a close game or within 10 points at 12:30 a.m. And I don't know. I don't want to have zero of it. Let's put it that way.
I'm with you. I wish Rondo was cheaper because I think that would be an interesting way to go on this slate. Like, no one was going to play him, and he's got massive upside, and we'll use the national TV game narrative too. But you've got to – I love Lillard tonight. I also worry, though, a little bit like Carmelo might just come out and take 35 shots here tonight, right? Like, he's playing against his buddy LeBron. Like, he didn't have him on the team. That's the one thing that worries me a little bit.
You know what? Something we discussed, though, in the last game, again, is Lillard's getting sneaky run with the second unit.
I know. But anyway, I think that's the way I think that it's Lillard, LeBron would be my preference over Davis. Okay. But I don't mind Davis either. Like, I'm good with every which way. I think Davis it's probably a better matchup on paper. But if the games are close these days, LeBron's the guy you want. So if I'm going to stack the Lakers, I usually play LeBron in my stacks, just because he's tended to play better in those closer games. So that's sort of the way I'm looking, and especially because AD's sort of like off and on banged up these days. So
do you like Skull at all at 3,300?
No. I played him the other night. I think he makes some sense, like from a. I don't know. Maybe if no value opens up, I'd reconsider that, but I don't think so.
So, I mean, having gone over this, it's really interesting because depending on how many lineups you play and what your approach is for the evening, it really does kind of dictate how you look at the slate. Because like Bobby, for example, he's because of life and because of what he wants to do, he's not going to be scripting 150 lineups and doing whatever. So he's going to be looking at the slate a little bit differently. Like, he can't find one build and just go deviate 25 ways from Sunday from that build. So Bobby's approach can be different. And whoever's watching this, think about what type of tournaments you're going to be playing. If you're playing single entry as opposed to, these big massive MME tournaments, which type of guys fit, the construction of the tournament you're in. And also how many lineups you're playing should also dictate how off the board you can go also. So like for me, I mean, like right now, I could just tell you that I'm going to probably focus on two things. I'll probably end up doing, I'll probably do 2 different 3 builds. I'll probably do something involving the Washington game where I kind of fill in some one-offs and mini guys that we've talked about and other guys that project well in there. And the other thing I'll do is I'll try like a whole bunch of like Laker Portlands, not so much like a whole bunch of combinations in that game because, I'm kind of concentrated with what I want, but then I'll just kind of fill in around there. And then what I might do is do another build where I just have like kind of my favorite plays, you know what I mean, that aren't as quite game stacky because again, like I don't know if this is such a, except for that one game which I happen to like, is much of a game stacky type thing. And then I'll build like kind of like my favorite plays and little like 1x1s and 2x2s in that, and have kind of 3 separate builds. And again, like I always do, I'll do one in each of the 3 single entries, maybe 1 in each of the spin moves, and then just kind of like just filter out from there.
Yeah.
And again, the more entries in a tournament I'm entering, right, the more, the more off the board as far as ownership I'm going to go, and just kind of fill in that way. So again, like that's my process, and and again, who's to say that I'm right? I mean, what I know about DFS, Bobby has in his freaking fingernails, and we're all trying to learn and figure this out. But you guys have to figure out what's best for you, also.
Yeah, for sure. And I will highlight real quickly just my favorite, not even my favorite plays, but the plays that stuck out to me as we've gone through this and we figured out trying to build a lineup. I do think that if I was playing multiple lines, I want to get back to that Miami-Washington game. As much as it worries me and I want to write it off, I also think it makes for a phenomenal game stack if I was playing many lineups, because if it does hit, you're gonna crush. You're gonna crush with like 5 players of 6. You can win in a 5 or 6 man stack if that game stays close, especially if Isaiah Thomas is out. But the guys who stood out to me the most, and this is not in no particular order: Damian Lillard, Turner, Myles Turner, Miles Bridges, but not that gets more off the board. Probably not going to go there. Jonathan Isaac, Kevin Love, Giannis, Draymond Green, Paul George, Buddy Hield, Jokic, Ish if no Isaiah, and Hero, especially if no Winslow. Those are just the initial guys who really stood out to me as just plays that I want to get in. And some of them are because they're going to be low owned, and some of them are because I just think that they're awesome plays. But I really like that sort of being my core at this moment.
Okay, so watch that injury news. Watch the Miami game, but really don't sleep on that Minnesota news. Okay, don't lock down your lineup at 7:00. And again, if you want to play FanDuel and take a shot, that you get the news that you want from the Minnesota game, fine. But those game time decisions, when they say game time decision, that's so freaking annoying to me.
I'm with you.
But you know what? If you're going to play, that's what you have to sign on for. So I would not sleep on the news from that game.
Yeah, well, you got to hear from the guys who have been winning the money lately, and not to sound too braggy, but we have been on fire. Hopefully, you guys are going to join us. Hopefully, we gave you the I don't know, I guess the intro and how to do it tonight. We're trying to figure it out ourselves still. And again, like Sheets said, look out for the news. Otherwise, thanks so much for tuning in, guys, and we will be back with football very shortly.
Okay.